Do not allow others to diminish your light due to their own fears and insecurities. Instead, let your light shine so brightly that you illuminate a pathway for others to find their way out of darkness. Dr. Stacy A. Maxwell. Hey everyone, it's Empress Lanice, and right now you are listening to Dear Empress and Friends podcast. Welcome to Dear Empress and Friends podcast. I'm your host, Empress Lanice. This podcast shares real life stories on how to live life beyond your own limits. All right, so this particular episode is actually going off track from my book, Dear Empress, You Were Born a Star. In the midst of promoting the book, which is out now, so you can get it on Amazon, in the midst of promoting the book and doing this podcast, there were some moments where I felt like I needed to dim my light. Now, no one necessarily said dim your light, but there were commentaries, experiences that I had where I felt like I needed to dim my light. I felt like I needed to hold things to myself because I didn't want to outshine someone, or I didn't want to upset someone or offend someone. And I realized that I'm not allowing myself to be the greatest version of myself. So for instance, I was ready to just stop the podcast, stop the book, because I felt like some of the things that I'm sharing that some people would feel offended by it. And I got some, questions or comments, which is why this came up. And I was like, you know what? Let me just not even do it at all, because once I get more into my book, into my podcast, I'm going to be sharing more things. And I didn't want to start feeling like I have to censor myself. And so I'm like, in order for me to not feel like I don't have to censor myself, why not just not do it at all? And even with the release of the book, when it came out February 21st, it took me a while to even just tell people that it's out. I used the excuse and reason that I was busy doing work, which I was. However, normally that doesn't stop me from getting things done or for promoting something that I'm excited about. Now, this is my first book, Dear Empress, You Were Born a Star. This is my first book where I'm giving excerpt. I still didn't even really give too much information, but just giving an excerpt of my life growing up. And sometimes it's not easy to talk about those things. Even on the podcast, it's not easy for me to talk about these things because I have to confront myself. I have to confront things that I've been avoiding or putting to the side because I feel like it's not important enough to talk about. But I decided to switch gears for this episode to talk about this because I wanted to share this in the moment. I didn't want to wait till later, years later, kind of how I'm doing with this book. I wanted to share with you guys in this moment of what I was really feeling. I felt like I should not be doing this. I felt like, let me just go back behind the scenes. Let me, just stay in my comfort, stay in my bubble, and just stay there so that I don't upset, don't bother, like everything is going to be good. But in the midst of that, I realized that I was dimming my light. And then I started to have an internal battle. I started to say, okay, if you stop doing this, it defeats the whole point of why you're even doing this. I'm doing this podcast to share my real life experiences to others or with others who may have been going through the same thing or who are going through the same thing now. We all have our different seasons of things where we have our doubts, we have our frustrations, we have our hearts broken, we have all these different experiences. And a lot of times we feel like we're alone. Even myself, I still, with even me doing this and knowing this, I still sometimes feel like I'm alone. And then it's not until I open up and share with my friends or maybe some colleagues about what it is that I'm dealing with, and then I find out that they have either dealt or is currently dealing with the same thing. And then we both find breakthroughs in that. We both find ways of how to navigate through that. We learn how to move together in that. And sometimes it's just not easy to just share this because of, embarrassment, of the image that you may have. Like, I've always been known to be perfect, the one that has it all together. So even though I don't, I've been trying to keep up with that view that others have of me. And it's not true. We're all human. We're imperfect beings. None of us is perfect. And I have to always remind myself that, and remind myself in a way that I don't feel like I need to dim myself, that I need to lower myself. And as I've already mentioned in previous episodes, that was kind of my feeling. Like, I've always knew I was destined to be great, destined to be a star, and not necessarily about fame, but just knowing that I have a greater purpose, and that my life is not normal. I don't want to be comfortable. I actually want to do things that are greater than I've ever experienced so far, or seen my family experience, my friends experience. I think of the world as so much more being out there. And in order for me to do that, I have to not dim my light. I have to be my greatest self, no matter how someone else may feel about that. And you never know how your greatest self can impact somebody. Before me taping this episode, I was talking to my friend, and I was sharing with her what I was feeling. Like, I wasn't even ready to just do this podcast. I was still like dressed down, don't have my hair, makeup done. I just was like, I really didn't want to do it. And she told me, she said, Empress, when I see you win, it makes me get up and want to win. It makes me want to make sure I get my stuff together. When I see you post something, I'm like, I need to get my stuff together. I need to do what I need to do because Empress is doing this. And it's not in a negative way. It was in a way of, I'm motivating her to get moving, to get going. And I have to remember that me being my authentic self, how big it can be to just be with that. It's so funny. Somewhere that I work, where like we all share a space, and they know I go by Empress, but at times they call me by my real name. And sometimes I have like my laptop, my notebook, all these things like taking up space. And like this person would make a comment like, you're just always taking up the space. And I used to like be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And of course I'm considerate, like I'll move what I need to move. But I started embracing that. I was like, well, I just have big, a big energy, big space, big, heart. I'm the Empress. And they go with it too. They be like, well, yes, you are the Empress. And I'm learning that it's okay to take up space, because there's always going to be space made for whoever else that is there. Like, I'm not dimming their light. I'm not dimming anything. And if anything, it's increasing the light in the space. All right. So in the midst of talking, my battery died from my camera, but it happens. That is a part of life. And once again, it doesn't mean that anybody's light has to dim. Things happen. All we can do is get back up and move forward. And I don't remember where I was going before, but I'm just thankful to understand my purpose, and still learning fully what that looks like and how. It's more of the how. Like, how am I supposed to do my purpose? But no matter what happens in life, no matter what people say to you, no matter what energy or feelings may come to you, never dim your light. And I'm talking to myself. Never dim your light. Like, I am so quick to create a whole narrative, a whole story about what I think, or try to interpret what somebody is doing and why they're doing what they're doing. Honestly, as I told my friend earlier, that doesn't even matter to me anymore. Like, it doesn't matter, because if it's not said, if it's not shown, then why put so much energy into that? There is no reason for us to be putting so much energy into something that we don't have facts. Now, granted, there is intuition and there's discernment, and you move accordingly. However, to break your day of getting upset, there was something that I saw on Instagram where the person said that, their day, they had a bad day. And then someone told them, like, was it 5 minutes? Was this 5 minutes a bad day? Or was this 5 minutes that you milked into being a bad day? And that hit me so hard, because there's a lot of times where I'll get upset about something that's so small that happened in a moment, that is a temporary feeling. And then I start to create it as a bad day, or dim my light for that day and not be my best self. So I'm not doing that anymore. And I want to encourage those who are watching or listening to not dim your light. It is so important for us to not dim our light. Who cares what other people think about us? If it's not something that is constructive, that's going to make us better, then who cares? We are all individuals. We have our own skills. Not everyone can do what you do. You are built to do what you do. And so don't ever let anyone make you feel that you can't do that. And do not dim your light. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to Dear Empress and Friends podcast on how to live life beyond our own limits. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. Also, get a copy of my book. It's out now. Dear Empress, You Were Born a Star. It's available on Amazon. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Empress Lanice. Peace.